Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. This is your week 6 forecast. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to Unit 6. This week is another independent work week. Last week, you had your midterms and book clubs, which I'll be reviewing throughout the week. So just give me some time, all this week and a little bit of next week to make sure that I enter in those grades. I do have to make a note that I'm still missing midterms. And I'm also missing some communication that goes along with those midterms, right? Or doesn't go along with the midterm. I still need to know whether you submitted on Saturday or you didn't. And I'm really surprised that I haven't from some of you. I find it a little bit strange that sometimes we resist communicating, even though 9 times out of 10, communicating actually benefits you, right? It's not only for the other person's benefit, but it also benefits you because now you can actually work through the issue that you're having with that other individual, right? I cannot know what you don't tell me, right? So all I can do is make assumptions, and that's never good. If you want control of your credibility, right? So if you don't want me thinking that you're lazy or that you're not a great communicator or whatever the case may be, it's important that you do communicate so that I do not make assumptions, or even your team members, right? It's not only with me, it's also with your group projects. If you're having a hard time communicating this quarter for whatever the reason may be, you have to communicate why so that we can actually work through those issues. Um, Again, this is not just for me or for the people here. This is not even for just this course. This is a life skill, right? This communication runs in all aspects of our lives. So I do want to take the moment to talk about it, because if you are being resistant in terms of communicating for whatever reason, I want to encourage you right this moment to be proactive and talk to your group members, talk to me, and let's get anything that's going on resolved. Right? Okay. There goes my rant, and I'll leave it at that. Now, let's talk about week 6. You're all more than halfway done here, so I really want you guys to, stick to the race here because you've been doing a great job thus far. It's just I noticed this week, I don't know if it's because of the midterm and how, detailed it may be for all of you to get that done, that it might have taken a little bit longer. I'm not sure. But again, I can't make assumptions. Communicate. Okay. So this week we are going to be looking at Unit 6, and it's all about organizational climate and the different fields that can impact an organization's diversity and inclusion efforts. So before we jump into Unit 6 here, I want to actually take a look at the syllabus just so that we can forecast a little bit more as to what's coming down the pipeline. So normally I do this every single time when I have a video, and I did it the first week of class, and I actually went down the list a little bit more because I want you guys to get in the habit of plotting things, right? If you are going through certain things, if you schedule ahead or plan ahead, I know things may change, but more often than not, you'll actually stick to your plan. So if you haven't created a plan yet, I want to forecast what's happening for the rest of the semester. So this week, take note that Wednesday we do have a discussion due. That means your responses to those individuals are also due, right? So you want to enter your response as soon as possible. You want to enter it today or tomorrow so that Wednesday you're actually responding to folks and not starting the process, right? You're ending the process really on Wednesday. Saturday, you have your second discussion due, right? But again, you want to be responding on Saturday. You want to have fun during your weekend, right? Be proactive. Try to get things done a little bit earlier. And lastly, we have our book club, which your responses are due. Now, those who are our leaders for our book club, you know what that means. You should be responding sometime in the next 3 days so that folks can start responding to your book club message. Otherwise, it just becomes an information dump the last day and no one's reading each other's responses and we're not growing or learning from it, right? And that's not the purpose. So make sure that you're just jumping ahead here. We're almost at the final stretch, so just get things done little by little. Now, week 3, we have one discussion, but you have your last team assignment due, not your project, but a last team assignment, which of course will be contributing to your final project. We have one more book club on that Saturday, right? So you have the same flow. Wednesday and then Saturday, you have your project and a book club. Make sure to get those done. And lastly, this is a big reminder here. We don't have a full week, right? We end things on Wednesday. When you normally would have a discussion, you actually have your team case study project due and your peer team participation rating. This is a little scary part here because even though folks you might be getting 30s now, high 20s, right? If your peers felt like you did not contribute, this is also added to your grade. So if you haven't been contributing the way that you should, I recommend that you start because this counts just like a normal grade would. I don't I don't feel bad for people if someone scored you low. I add everything up and divide it as it is. Okay? I don't make up any numbers. So you in fact earn this grade. I do not give it to you. All right? Just make sure that you're doing everything you can to earn the grade that you want at the end because you give yourself your own grades. Just want to make sure that everyone's aware. Okay? So that is the remainder of our basically quarter. Again, we're at the final stretch. Let's definitely put in the effort that we need to finish strong. Okay? Now, as far as our topic, in terms of our, not topic, sorry, I was reading at the top, the little tab here, our reading 6, right? As far as reading 6, we have a couple of chapters here that you do have to read. So in the Ferdman text, we have chapters 8, 9, 11, and 21. So those are 4 chapters. I believe this is the week that you have the most reading. And if you were looking ahead, you could have gotten that started during your midterm week, right? And we also have chapter 5 of The Loudest Duck, and that is, I believe, the unwritten rules. Okay, so that's our reading for this week. Now, let's go ahead and look at, I do want to explain a little bit about chapter 6. As you guys see here, the title is Enhancing Organizational Climate, and we'll be discussing climate a lot. But we will also be discussing the different fields that impact an organization's diversity and inclusion efforts. And specifically, we're going to be looking at human resource, like the human resource perspective. And that has everything to do with selection and recruitment strategies. We're going to be looking at the OD umbrella, which basically emphasizes on organizational surveys like 360s and focusing on performance management and processes. A lot of change management also occurs in OD. Obviously, these are all brothers and sisters, but I want to talk about it from their perspective because they all have something to contribute differently when it comes to inclusion and diversity. And lastly, we have our IO perspective, which again ties into these human resources perspectives in OD. So if you see yourself, talking a little bit about recruitment when you're talking about IO, that's totally fine because they all relate to each other. It's all a domino effect, right? But some of the things I want to focus on when it comes to the IO umbrella is an emphasis on training and consultations and conducting needs analysis, right? Because those are things that IO psychologists do very well. And if you're going to take that perspective, I would like to hear some of those points, okay? So again, human resources, selection, recruitment strategies, OD, dealing a lot with organizational surveys, performance management and processes, right? Change management, and IO with training, consultations, and needs analysis. All right, so that's my spiel on chapter, or rather, should I say, unit 6, right? Because we have about 4 chapters that we're actually covering for this week. Now, your first discussion, which again, it's independent work, your first discussion has to do with what are the best practices for human resource management professionals that are considering a diversity and inclusion initiative. So what would a human resource professional do, right? When is it appropriate to use the 4 key data-driven OD organizational development, right? So for those of you who I've been saying OD means organization development, right? So when is it appropriate to use the four key data-driven process used to integrate diversity and inclusion? And some of those things that I talked about were organizational and employee surveys, 360 feedback, performance management, and talent management. And lastly, what contributions can an IO psychologist make when it comes to diversity and inclusion? So again, we're just looking at those three perspectives within this specific discussion. And we're not choosing one, we're looking at all three because I want you guys to have um, a view on all of them, right? Especially if you're more IO and you don't really know the human resource perspective. This is what this chapter is doing. It's kind of opening your eyes at looking at different perspectives so that you can use it where you are at right now in the role that you are in, right? Now, the second discussion has a lot to do with OD and just change management overall. How to change the climate, especially one from not being so not being so into the diversity and inclusion efforts to one that actually wants to become more inclusive. So the question is, utilizing the steps involved in the change process, and that's going to be on chapter 11, and it's table 11.1. So it's one of the first things you'll see. What would be your plan to help the organization you are currently working with to become more inclusive? So I want you to look within your own organization because you're all already looking at different organizations, right? So what can you do from where you are right now? And lastly, what are the three primary dimensions that constitute inclusive climate? And which areas specifically would you tackle based on your experiences and observations made at your current job? So I find this one really interesting because, again, I know that it may not be right in your face, but there are always some type of diversity and inclusion efforts that need to be made in order for an organization to become more inclusive. Okay, so I'll be looking at those dimensions, and I'll leave that up to you to look at chapter 11 and decide what those are. Okay, and lastly, we have our book club, which is the unwritten rules. Again, those of you who are our leads, sorry, those of you who are our leaders within this specific week, make sure that you are responding early. And our book club leaders are Michael, Ludmia, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, and Daniel, Eddie, and Willington. Okay, so that's a couple of you. It's about 5. So make sure that you are responding a little bit early so folks can respond to your summaries. Okay, I'm also looking for thorough work here, people. I'm seeing that last week responses were a little bit shorter. Keep digging into this material. You're almost there. You're almost done, and I'm here to push you. Okay. Um, Lastly, that I want to mention is I have a couple announcements that have been going up, and one of the most important ones is don't run from APA, embrace it. It's really important that you look to make sure that you're actually incorporating APA correctly. And I also included a reference page in this announcement, and I included a sample APA page. That's the last thing that I've posted lately. Okay, so make sure you're looking into that. For those of you who are still working on your midterm, please check out the midterm forecast. It has a lot of information as to in terms of the expectations that I have for the midterm. And don't forget, again, communicate, communicate, communicate. Happy Monday, everyone. Have a great day.